afternoon, beloved community. I am Melissa Miller, host of The Chosen Heroes, and it's an honor and privilege to spend some time with you today. And we have a very special guest, Christopher Mettlen, that's joining us. And I'm going to kick it off with a prayer. I know that, I've heard, and even myself had an uptick in, attacks and such, which is the targeted journey. But, through God, through our faith, and we build up our resilience to fight the good fight. So God, we come before you today and we seek your divine protection and shelter from the spiritual attacks from this targeting experience. And we put on the full armor of God, the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shoes of the gospel of peace, and the shield of faith, and the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit, which is your word. We stand firm against the schemes and attacks of the enemy and declare that every weapon formed against us shall not prosper. And we bind and we rebuke every spirit of fear, doubt, and deception, and cancel every assignment of darkness over our lives, our families, and our homes. And we ask you, Spirit, to fill us with your strength, your wisdom, and your discernment. And we ask that your angels be dispatched to protect and defend us from all harm. And we trust in your power and your promise to be the refuge and the fortress. In your name we pray. So it reminds me of Noah and the scoffers. He heeded God's call and message. And God always favors, the ones that heed the call with him. And today we need to stand strong and firm, knowing that we break the chains of oppression off of our lives, and that we cast every label that we've carried and it's broken off of us. All of those false labels that have come against us, we lay those down. They are not ours to carry. And we stand on God's promise to reclaim our birthright and our mantle, our inheritance. Nothing of this earth or otherwise can take this from us. We can take this targeting experience and turn it into a spiritual awakening that reveals who we truly are and can become, despite of all the tactics used to make us stumble and fall. God is with us, and we invite him into our heart and to let his unconditional love and healing consume us, melting away the trauma that we've carried from this experience, the anger, the resentment, the grief, the disappointment, the betrayal that this experience has brought to us. We lay this at God's feet, and we will not carry this pain or suffering any longer because it's not meant for us to carry it. So we give it to him and we trust in him, and we have to believe it and feel it when we pray. The supernatural power that is divine intervention in God's hand against the oppressors that we are subjected to. So we're claiming victory today. We're breaking the chains off of ourselves. And we are in the fight to win it. So I'm going to kick off with some news, targeted justice news for this week.
Many targeted law-abiding citizens, or TIs, are hit with the fraudulent psychiatric system each year. The United States government and the deep state are using this system to abuse the rights of citizens. This is being done to silence the dissent, critics of government policy, and whistleblowers. There are numerous examples of citizens being forcibly confined to a mental hospital, when their only offense was challenging government corruption. The Diagnostic Symptoms Manual has been substantially revised to include fake diseases for all kinds of bogus symptoms. This makes it easier for them to silence the critics and whistleblowers. The latest revision to the DSM-5 was a carefully orchestrated government exercise. This was done under secrecy and a lack of transparency, which many doctors have complained about. This fraud is relevant to targeted law-abiding citizens. Reason being, to maintain the torture program, the CIA must convince the public that TIs are mentally unstable. The Anti-Psychiatry Coalition is a non-profit volunteer group consisting of people who feel we may have been harmed by psychiatry and of our supporters. They created a website to warn you of the harm routinely inflicted on those who receive psychiatric treatment and to promote the democratic ideal of liberty for all law-abiding people that has been abandoned in the USA, Canada, and other supposedly democratic nations.
Please help us welcome Dr. Juliet Engel to our advisory board. Dr. Engel is the author of 3 books covering her experience as an MKUltra victim. She is an accomplished medical doctor and is working to expose and shut down the ongoing MKUltra program. In the 10 years that she ran the Angel Coalition from Moscow, the Russian Angels saved over 70,000 children. She is now back home in America and planning a nationwide public information campaign with her new podcast, Angels Over America.
Targeted Justice suggests that the CIA, DIA, and NCTC are very busy nominating thousands of cartel members to the TSDB. President Trump declared them a foreign terrorist organization, or FTO. Based on a 2023 study published in a science magazine, an estimated 175,000 people are actively working as members of Mexican drug cartels, making these organizations the 5th largest employer in the country.
In the latest episode of The Gavel, attorney Anna Toledo interviewed Dr. Kirk Moore, a medical hero that injected saline solution to consenting patients instead of the COVID-19 bioweapon. It almost cost him his freedom. Dr. Kirk Moore is a respected 59-year-old plastic surgeon and former Navy flight surgeon from Utah. He's got a rare combination of experience and courage. Thanks to the intervention of Mike Lee, Thomas Massey, and in particular Marjorie Taylor Greene. This courageous surgeon got the charges dismissed 3 days after the trial began. He faced 35 years in prison. For more than 2 years, Dr. Moore battled government weaponization and won. He did not give up. His plastic surgery clinic is appropriately named Freedom and can be found at freedomsurgicalutah.com. God knows how many of us need freedom from non-consensual implants.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The weekend comes, my cycle hums, ready to race to you. Blue by gray sky, hello blue. There's nothing can hold me when I hold you. You feel so right, you can't be wrong. Rockin' and rollin' all week long. These days are on. Share them with me. These days are on. Happy and free. These happy days are yours and mine. These happy days are yours and mine. Happy days.
Calling all digital warriors. Repost, share, and like this video on every social media site that's out there. We always looking for some awesome people willing to volunteer their time. Let us know what special skills and unique talents you possess by shooting us an email to tjustice2@proton.me. In the subject line, type volunteer. Looking for more targeted justice content? We have several channels online, 100% free, on rumble.com. Appreciate what we do? We are accepting donations and they're all tax deductible. You can either hit this link to do a quick submission of payment or send us a check to the following mailing address. We are a non-profit organization. We have several different items at our store, ranging from clothes, cups, and merchandise. Either get something for yourself or buy a nicer gift for that special someone by hitting this link.
Thanks for taking your time to watch this video. And God bless, and God bless, and God bless.
Shout out to Sean for always doing a wonderful job on the weekly videos for the news. So talented. And I'm so grateful to have him as a volunteer for the Chosen Heroes. I don't know what I would do without him. He does such great work. Just an announcement. I saw that there was someone in the chat looking for a group within California. I would suggest visiting tievents.org. Tranquility does such an amazing job of organizing all the meetups, the podcasts, the phone calls, all of the resources, all of the events. It is your one-stop shop of all TI related events and groups. And so go ahead and check it out. It's tievents.org. Upcoming guest to the Chosen Heroes next Sunday will be Ed Zimko. You want to tune in and hear Ed's story. He's such a delightful person, and I'm looking forward to our discussion. And on the end of August, we've got the 31st is Wendy, and she has a podcast called The Butterfly Transmission, which is a podcast for a targeted life told through vision, trauma, and art. Amazing story. We have a lot of similarities, but this has been an international targeting experience with her. So you definitely want to tune in and hear her story. And she's very gifted with her artwork as well. On September 7th, Jeremy Strayer will be joining us to talk about his targeting experience and, his relentlessness not to give up and to just keep moving forward. You want to tune in and hear his story. On August 23rd, I co-host, we'll have another meeting, the Beyond the Looking Glass, the Targeted Survivor Counterintelligence Training bi-weekly teleconference that I co-host with Jamie Rice, who is with Quantum Reality Studies. If you have not experienced some of the teachings of the poli-sci, and this is about reclaiming your self-power and your worth and healing and releasing all of the emotional triggers and the trauma that the targeting experience brings to us. So I invite you, the videos for all of the classes, the teleconference is on the Chosen Heroes YouTube channel that you can tune in and take a look. As always, thank you for your support, and I am so grateful for those who subscribe, follow, like, and share the content on the pages. On the screen is all the different channels for the Chosen Heroes. So before I bring up our special guest, I'm going to read a little bit of information about Chris. Christopher Mettlen began his life as a target in 2004. V2K energy weapons began constantly in 2012 while living in Topeka, Kansas. Christopher is employed full-time and remains vigilant in his helping others whom are suffering daily due to the illegal surveillance and torture. And Christopher became a member of Targeted Justice in 2017 after the adjudicated case in Mettlen versus Kaste. That particular case remains today as an energy weapons gang stalking case in the federal courts. Christopher has been diligent with continued activism for those targeted within other countries such as the UK, South Africa, and the Middle East. Christopher has become a person that is ready for freedom. As a volunteer, the feeling of reaching out to others to assist has amazing healing benefits that has changed the outlook and perception of humanity within Christopher's beliefs. Christopher will forever be in the fight with us to end the targeting program and hold accountability to those responsible. And Christopher achieved a milestone for the targeted community this year, getting an interview and article published by Jim Hoff, founder of the Gateway Pundit. Article was titled Targeted Justice Sounds Alarm on DHS-Funded Gang-Stalking Programs and Explosive Letter to Secretary Noam. And this was published on April 12th, 2025. And you can find the link to this article on the announcement for Christopher's appearance on the Chosen Heroes on the X page. And it will also be within the description once this video is posted on YouTube, Facebook, chat group, and X and Rumble. So you can get the link to that article there. So without further ado, let's bring our very special guest up to the stage. Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So can you tell us, in 2008 when it all began, so what started to occur that made you aware that something was amiss?
I started noticing conversations we're having around me in public, and they would been conversations that I had in the privacy of my own home.
Mm.
I noticed that within the first couple years, but really things just started. I would come home and like there was somebody that just left, kind of the still have the smell of another person. Um, and I went through that, and of course, the first couple of years, first, um, we don't know what to do, who to.
You're cutting in a little bit, in and out.
Can you hear me? Okay, no, better.
I think that's better. Yes.
All right, but yeah, mainly just I noticed that the gaslighting and stalking, maybe some remote neural monitoring for the first few years, but I didn't have any other signs of any energy weapons or V2K.
And then in 2012 is when you started to experience the V2K and the energy weapons constantly, correct?
Correct. Yes, and that was about within that time frame when I'd filed. Started doing some research with law. Now, before I became a part of Target Justice, I was a part of Freedom from Covert Harassment and Dr. Charles Robinson at the time. And I didn't really have any information other than I was going on to John's website, US government. And I was getting a lot of information about electronic harassment and the gang stalking. And but it was really that information back then isn't anything today. We came so far, much further in advance with the information that we have. But aside from that, I started doing a lot of law work. I would go to the law at the public, start researching specific areas, just to try to create a rough draft. I had something, and this took me like of writing stuff down about, and my complaint in over 100 pages with.
And you're cutting out again. I don't know if it's the microphone, maybe.
Okay. So I was trying to think where I was at. Okay, I was at a little bit. Okay, so I was going to the library, the law library, and started studying my case and my issues, and I put together to paid the filing fee, and of course I was a pro se litigant, but during the course of this time, the courts just ignored pretty much all my requests, and the case was just after 8 months. Well, I didn't have a lot of knowledge with the law, so I knew that there wasn't no way for me to go into the appellate side of law. So I've just kind of been started doing a lot of reaching out to members of the public, going to the Capitol, speaking with legislators, um, people there in the Topeka, Kansas area. But the biggest thing that I found that was productive and helped me today is documenting and keeping a journal, some type of log where you have your dates, your times, and your issues written down. I can't stress how important it is to start keeping that documentation. But yeah, so what else?
Yeah, so can you describe, like, just give a general summary of what was in this was a lawsuit against, was it the FBI,
Yeah,
and just a summary of what you stated as the complaint.
all right. So I had um and placed a memorandum into the FBI's office regarding this electronic harassment, gangstalking.
Mm-hmm.
And when I placed this memorandum into the FBI's office, uh, the following day they sent an officer to my house.
So they sent an FBI officer to your house.
Yeah, a JTTF officer. And when that JTTF officer, he had paperwork to civil commit me to a psychiatric hospital, and I was there for 4 or 5 days underneath doctor's care at the psychiatric ward. Upon completion of being from the psychiatric unit, that I was charged with
You were charged with a criminal what?
a criminal threat, a criminal threat, and they kept it state. They didn't make it effective, even though this memo was addressed to the FBI. They kept it on the state level. So I kind of got through that. So not only I complained about the harassment, but I also was targeted by the same official that I brought it to. So, and that's a lot of what we deal with today, and pretty much everybody that's ever complained, they just have ways of dealing with you.
So when you filed the complaint, did you do that in person? And then the very next day, somebody's knocking on your door to take you to the psych hospital for evaluation.
Right.
Wow.
Yes. And it happened all within a little bit of time, within a couple weeks period of time. It was almost as though they knew what my decisions were when I filed the case into the federal court. I had already came to terms with me being targeted for the last 10 years, and I was already at a point where I had to do something. And here we are 12 years later, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
still doing it. So
Mm-hmm.
I haven't I don't do the law stuff anymore. I'm more of an advocate now. I like to reach out and help people,
Mm-hmm.
rather talk to somebody on the phone rather than a text message or an email, because a lot of times you can communicate with somebody and get a lot more information in a little bit of time.
Absolutely. Well, certainly commend you for, the advocacy that you do for this community. I know I've spoken to many who have complimented and said that, you've helped them. And with that, can you describe, okay, so you are admitted to this psychiatric hospital for the testing. I'm sure that was just, talk about such a violation and overreach and injustice. you know that, you know, this, you're getting put into like this facility to get the testing, but then your testing revealed what? So they couldn't keep you, right? Because, you know.
Right. They weren't able to keep me because they didn't find anything wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
Where they asked me if I was hearing voices prior to my release. I told them no, I wasn't hearing any voices, because if you answer yes,
Mm-hmm.
do whatever they can to place you on medication or
Yeah.
keep you. So kind of at that time, I was scared. I didn't know what they were trying to do, even though I knew that they either wanted to determine me to be crazy or they wanted to place me. Both things happened, and so anyway, yeah, I was completely violated, and this I went through a lot of years of holding resentment and holding grudges, and I would see my ex-wife's family and in the way a lot with the targeting, and I've just started narrowing down what my real issues were, and I would of course write it down, and then I'd come back in a couple weeks and I would read my problems that I wrote down, and it was like they weren't an issue anymore. I'd already moved on to something else.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't to prioritize what was important, because once UK and the energy started coming, felt like I was lost hope, and I felt a lot of despair, and the family, of course, turns on, and nobody believes you.
Mm-hmm.
Go through that. Because like we were talking earlier about the stages of targeting, there's so many stages that and it's once we get to the we already have that and because we already been through a certain that stage, um and that doesn't make it as difficult for us to have to deal with, especially the gang stalking and the gang. I guess that's something that I've been able to adapt to more today than I was the first 5 years targeted.
Yes, in the beginning, just as you said, when I had, you know, worked at a company and started to reveal findings that were impacting others, these people were very corrupt, and obviously, you know, I didn't realize how well connected this multimillionaire was, but he has a seat on the HPD Foundation board, and all of these other, all into the politics within this state. He's heavily involved with that because of his funding to them. So, you know, it started out in the environment, like you said. In this environment, only what was shared at my home with my elderly mother, it was conversations between us, those started to get repeated in that environment. And I had people who were, you know, trying to take sympathy on me, knowing what they were doing to me, saying that they themselves were having to cover their TVs and all of the, you know, unplug everything at home, and that they were being coached to do this to invoke a fight or flight response in me and to make me seem unstable. And that the more I reacted, that one of those leaders was saying that they were doing a good job and to keep it up. So that's what happened with me. Now, for me, I know where all this originated from because they didn't know how much I saw, and it was a threat to them, and they were trying to silence me. But it's very earth shattering to those who have always done good and done the right thing. And then when you go to the police or the FBI because they're supposed to be the ones to protect you, and then they're a part of it. I had HBD threaten me, saying that they were going to put me in his vehicle if I called one more time to complain about this company. Did I not know who I was messing with this multi-millionaire? He had that reputation that nobody messes with them and succeeds or survives, right? So that's what you're stacked up against. And you're like, well, what in the world am I going to do when my odds are stacked so against me and for the perpetrator and, the one that has no respect for life at all. So I think that going through that, I mean, your whole world implodes at that point. And it's just, I can't say enough that if God hadn't intervened with me about, because I was at a very low moment, that if I got to the root of the gaslighting and why it was hurting me so bad and tormenting me so bad, then it wouldn't bother me anymore. So that's what you kind of have to do in this whole experience. And you got to zoom out and look at it for what it is. It is patterns, and it's gaslighting, it's manipulation, it's coercion, it's threats, it's all of the things to elicit that reaction or to spark you into some behavior that can get you easily labeled and classified in some way. And so what? So what if you do get labeled and classified something? You know the truth, God knows the truth, and there's a whole community that knows the truth. And it's so important. We've been trained since, about people acknowledging us and being seen. And we go into not being seen or heard. And that's a really hard place for people to be because we know the truth. So how did you, in those beginning phases, you got family turning on you, you're trying to report this behavior that is being done against you, and then the next day you end up being taken away, against your will to be evaluated when you are sane and have done nothing wrong. So can you give some advice? I know
Yeah.
you had said for people to document these
Well,
experiences, but how did you start to maneuver the day to day?
the day-to-day stuff, I went through a phase where I lost complete trust and going into offices, the courthouse. They were taking my photo ID, my state ID, driver's license, photocopying it, and then placing it in the courthouse to the marshals and saying that I had been deemed mentally ill, that I was a threat to the officials at the FBI. So they was making things very difficult for me to even file into the clerk's office because every place that I would go into, they had already came in behind me and was pretty much trying to do whatever they could to discredit why I was there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started realizing that, um, it didn't stop me from continuing on, but what it did was it made me very cautious. So I got in the habit of handing out flyers. I'd print out my flyers. I'd go and pass them out underneath the door, but I always put my name on it because I was so paranoid that I always wanted everybody to know what I was complaining about. I always had to have everybody had to know Christopher Mettlen, Christopher Mettlen. And I wasn't ashamed of it. I was persistent. And over a period of time, which I want to say after the dismissal, I started gearing more in toward, well, what can I be doing to let others know within the state? so I started doing more access to the and going and putting flyers underneath the door. That way, I didn't have to have communication with the person, so to speak.
Mhm.
I could go in and do that, and that was beneficial to me, case, but it's not beneficial in shutting the program down because we're in a two different aspects of trying to do this on your own and within the state. It's next to impossible. You're just better off getting gathering with another person who's a TI, or they don't have to be a TI, be just a person to help you, um, but do it together, and try not to um, create too much of an issue with one. You just want to keep continuing on with several different people, representatives, lawyers. Um, there's a lot of people within um, Congress, and so they, looking forward to targeted action 2025.
Mhm.
Um, that was part of something I was um, looking forward to ever since they announced it. So yeah,
Yes, so that is coming up pretty soon, the first week of September. So, and you had mentioned you and Sterling Battelle, who he was a guest on the Chosen Heroes, and he's a firefighter that is targeted in Kansas as well. So, and you and Sterling are going together to DC, right?
that's correct. Yes, and anybody that can travel with another, I mean, it's good to do. If you can find somebody to go with you from the state you're in.
And I believe on Targeted Justice website, there is that coordination for those that are needing a ride and, what state are you in? So definitely check that if you are interested to see if maybe there is some rideshare carpooling that is going on with other TIs to help you out. And all the latest, itineraries and all of that will be on Targeted Justice website soon because it's coming up really quick. So I know they had a banner contest and they published one of them on the newsletter. So some exciting events coming up. So can you tell us about you were able to get in touch with Jim Hoft, and he wrote an article, which I've got a screenshot of the article on the screen there, and that was such an amazing win for this community to get this publicity about the gang stalking, um, the funded gang stalking. So how are you able to do this? So many have tried, but you were able to succeed in getting in touch with him. And he is such a creditable uh, author and the founder of Gateway Pundit.
Right. Well, I tell you, I have learned to be a copy and paste king. I print and paste everything because it's so much more difficult for them to, when you're copy and pasting, that happens so quickly with the link. So I that day that I happened to get through to Jim Hall, I had already a bunch of information, all of our flyers from Targeted Justice, some of the information regarding Anna's letter to Secretary Noam, because we've been trying to make contact, and it didn't seem like anybody was making contact. So I started one morning. I woke up and I emailed probably 20 people, and the Guardian, Gateway Pundit. There was a couple Newsmax, I believe, was another. But I had just started sending a bunch out, and I was very detailed with kind of the flyers, and then I made the statement here I am advocating for other countries, and we've got our own fusion centers, gang stalking and harassing, and I took compiled all that information, and I was able to get to Jim, and I was so thankful that he posted it, and I thanked him, you know.
Mm-hmm. It's a great article, and again, the description of this podcast once it posts on YouTube and Rumble, you can get to the link to the article, or you could just search on Google, Gateway Pundit Targeted Justice. It'll come up right away. So kudos to you for that. So you started volunteering with Targeted Justice in 2017. So did you just find out about them at that time, or had you known about them and then decided to reach out and volunteer?
Well, during the time when I was still kind of with free harassment surveillance, and during the time of 2017, Targeted Justice was still in the early stages of gathering information. So we hadn't quite put together the full website. I think there was just a news tab or something for a while. But
Mm-hmm.
I started gathering stuff that they did put on the website, and it was making more sense in my situation than from everything else I was gathering. Because I had been targeted for 12, 14 years uh, prior to 2017, and I already had a lot of knowledge about what was going on with me. So when I started researching the website, seeing all the pull downs for the different information, I was like, well, yeah, this is all spot on, all correct information. What I'm experiencing, it's there's nothing there that's what it's not. So when they talked about how they want to make you uh, put a threat, have you as a threat or have mentally ill, both of those things happened to me, and that's what made me stick with Target. I I believed at that time that it was the true righteous way to go with the best accurate, and that's this pretty much I am. And there's a lot of people that still I've known for years in other groups, but that's still got a good information. A lot of those still have good information. They may not have exactly the pinpoint accurate information, but it's still a way for to help other targeted individuals. There's a lot of information online.
Yes, we've also experienced, this year Targeted Justice having the website shut down, and then have to rebuild. We had, some archive copies, thankfully, but Anna Toledo did a wonderful job rebuilding everything. There's a lot of information. You never will not have, information if you go to the website. It does help, for those who have people who are in doubt or question of the validity of what you're saying. First, we have to understand that, of course, when we start talking about some of the symptoms, the only thing that, a normal person would be able to equate voices to is mental illness. So we're dealing with the stigma, right? Which it's like the perfect hoax of what they've done to us to get us classified into that category of it being, mentally ill or, unstable. So providing information to those that are in disbelief, and it helps. There will be some that will still be skeptical or not fully on board, but then podcasts and teleconferences, tievents.org, it's too many people for it to be denied. And I think that's it. And you have to be patient too. For some, it's just going to take some time. It's a lot to absorb. And again, not fair that we have to think about trying to get some, buy-in and belief from others what we're going through. Nobody will understand what we are subjected to on a daily basis, 24/7, other than somebody who has gone through it. And even though our loved ones may not be going through it and they try to give us support, they still don't fully understand. So we have to give them some grace in that too, because it's so wild. It's just like, it's sci-fi movies, the things that we've seen come into real life, the Minority Report, surveillance, brain hacking, all of the things that are going on. It's just a hard pill for people to swallow. I think these times where there's been so much coming up in terms of what the government has done and covered up, and it's a little bit better timing now for people to be more receiving to digest this information. So we cannot give up hope, and we got to connect with those that understand while we try to get the rest of the world up to speed of what is really going on. We had talked about this before we went live. To me, it's pointing to the fact that what we are going through is what can and potentially will happen to every single person on this earth. Okay. It's a biofield violation, invasion, and the neuro rights that we don't have enough of. And if we can get the neuro and the cognitive rights established out there, then that's going to be our win. But we've been introduced to this, but I think that the goal is, for it to be the masses. So it's so important for us to get out there and to keep our voice of awareness, the flames of truth, going, so that we can get more that would not even know that this is a possibility aware.
Yeah.
Can you talk so in terms of just outside of the US, you've been focusing on UK and other countries. Can you talk about the awareness and what you've done to kind of help those countries as well? Because we know this is a global epidemic in terms of neuro rights violation.
Yeah, I've been working a little bit with South Africa, some, and the Middle East, not so much. Yeah, has had a little bit of communication with me, but I'm more or less referring a lot of outside of our country to the website. And once they've gotten into reading some of the website, then I'll go back and we'll have conversations
Mhm.
that about what we discussed on the website. That way I don't get cross lines with because a lot of their targeting in the other countries be a little bit different than ours in the US. And what I mean by a little bit different, it seems like there's a lot more maybe of a isolated like when I was working in Switzerland, I was having conversations with others that were trying to set up podcasts, but the conversations that it was difficult for other TIs to get in TIs. They isolated so well that no who the other who else was targeted. Um,
So
so
they were having a hard time, because you were cutting out a little bit, a hard time connecting with each other to meet up and to discuss it, and they were getting isolated from having that partnership, that collaboration with other TIs.
Right. And that seemed to be the most difficult, especially in Africa and South Africa. A lot of their tribal council type of establishment, and like a pyramid type of bidding that they do with their smaller provinces. These are corrupted to the core, and so a lot of people don't have the basic fundamentals that the Americans have today. And so when you don't have your basic rights in some of these other countries, then it's difficult to ask for a privilege or try to help targeting, because it's like you're going to have to go much further. Does that make sense?
It does. So yes, it's a difference in the rights from from the get go, and so it's more challenging to.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as reaching out, the WhatsApp is free calls to overseas international calls. I have a lot of conversations on there, usually with the messengers. A lot of people gathering information, and they'll send it to me at WhatsApp. Go there and look at it um, and see. But it's keeping everybody on the same playing field with what we're trying to achieve. I think that's been the biggest game changer for me. Try to be as accurate as I can across the board with the information, and keep sharing it over and over with different people, targeted community, because eventually it'll all just become like a fluid, a liquid. It all flow together, and
Mhm.
everyone has that same information. But yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell. I've really enjoyed the national outreach. I think when Richard go this route, it was a very good decision, because Harold just kind of took off with the UK and pretty much all of England and Switzerland area, and he
Mhm.
um, bilingual, so he's able to speak German, and he has the calls in German, so that it made it a lot easier for him to pick up in the areas of UK. But during the time when I'd reached out to Jim, I made contact with Jim Hoff. I was working for UK, and a lot of the things there in Switzerland was the calls that were being set up on a weekly basis. But it was difficult to rally to get people onto the call, even though we would announce it on our website. We still didn't have a very good turnout for um, in those other countries.
Oh, that's unfortunate. It seems like there is other forces working against them as well. And Chris had mentioned Harold, and that's Harold Brims. You can find his information on targetedjustice.com. On Rumble, he has his own podcast as well. And as Chris stated, he is bilingual. Harold was also a guest on the Chosen Heroes also. And for those in UK and England, and Germany, right? Yes, for him as well, those in Germany. Again, he's bilingual. I would suggest reaching out to him because he also books, TIs on his podcast as well as the Chosen Heroes. So what would you say is like, you feel that would be the greatest win that we've achieved this year? Maybe your article that you got published. And the next question would be, what do you feel would be that major door opening for at the government level of awareness of the targeting program? What do you think it's going to take for it to really get visible?
Well, I think in terms of us staying focused with the Senate Intelligence Committee and Homeland Security Committee, I think we can start more in tune as long as we can get some type of legislation passed and get a better oversight team for the specific areas of these that we're having to deal with the targeting program. But I believe it's going to be directly just within a committee within DC. The Justice Department having all of these different three-letter agencies under them. I think we posted something this year saying the Justice was, or excuse me, that the Justice Department was the most corrupt that we have based on the research that we are. I think here Targeted Justice reached 21,000 subscribers. And that was a huge thing because it took us a little while to get those 1,000 subscribers. But yeah, I think that I got out the publication was important. I don't really know how much coverage it got. I think the Gateway Pundit had an average of 2.1 million subscribers to it. So if it made that much coverage per day, then that's great. But I don't really know how much coverage it actually.
Well, I think it was excellent, and there was a lot of sharing on X, and I think one of the important things to remember is the importance of sharing information like the article that was published earlier this year, along with the other content about the program and the targeting and the gang stalking and the audio effect, and just getting it out there, because in getting it, the community knows, it's good to circulate it amongst the community, because we can share to our, the followers that may not have seen that information, right? And then we have the internal community, but it's very important for us to share outside of our community, so that there could be someone who is going through this themselves, and they're like, oh my gosh, you made their day, because they finally have something tangible, acknowledgement to relate to what they're going through. And then you could reach somebody who isn't aware of this, but is open minded, and will then, begin to learn more about it. So we can't, when we're getting new people engaged in awareness about what is happening to us, that is a win. No matter if it's 100, we achieved, breakthrough of getting someone aware about something so covert. Because at every angle, when it comes to media and these journalists, even though they say that they're independent, they don't want to touch it. So, and it begs to question, why are they so afraid to touch this? And is it because they know something will happen to them? Are they getting, hush money? There could be all of these different factors. It takes a brave soul to do what's right for humanity, and to take that step forward. Because if you don't, then we all lose, right? And if somebody is in power to reach millions of people, and they still choose not to speak on something that is impacting hundreds of thousands of lives all around the globe, and they won't take it, to me, they are not made of the same stuff that I am. Okay? Because I always have been the one. I will root on the underdog, right? And I was the underdog. And when there is injustice, I always raise my hand, and that's what got me targeted. And I don't regret it. I'm still, out, you know, telling the world about what is going on. And in this last year, more publicly than ever before, because I'm on this podcast speaking about it, and inviting people who have had this happen to them to speak about it as well. Can you give some tips and guidance to those with our community that you feel that, I know for me, we've been in it a long time. Mine's from 2012. Something that you feel that you wish you would have known at the beginning in the first couple of years that you know now to help try to cut through some of that, that grief and suffering and for someone else. I know some of it has to go through its own natural process, but is there some things that you wish that you would have knew in the beginning that you know now?
Don't worry so much about um, small things, such as trying to collect tag numbers or trying to constantly take pictures of people around. Um, yeah, it's important if you have a body camera and you wanting to be out in public, it's a way for you to stay safe and you're still able to keep everything around you for what's going on. If I was to ever go back, I have I used to write down all these tag numbers and had all this, but and they just switched tags. They have different tags, so it really doesn't do the uh, tag numbers, even though register he'll still have to a person. It's difficult for us TI to figure out who was driving that and prove where it was at located. Um, so a lot of TIs that I've talked to, they'll get into the way of their targeting, and yeah, it's important to your handlers and the people around you. But for the most part, things that I've always was aware when I look back at the coworkers and the places around people that would work there and places that I would go to gas stations or um, just it became very very fluent in what was happening. But you can beat yourself up by overthinking it
Mhm.
because you can sit there and really zoom in and zero in on one person, but it's the neighbor down the street or it's somebody across town. It's really not going to help. And I think if I was to ever go back and get information, I would be wanting this information right here. Start writing things down that you know that are important to you. And if you have a problem or something that you come upon that you can't figure out, write it down and come back to it in a few days and see if it's still. Because a lot of times our V2K is telling us something about somebody and they run it so much that we actually start focusing on things that we shouldn't. And it's a big distraction. So, electronic harassment with the energy weapons, I found that I take Epsom salt baths and I take a lot of tea and multivitamins. Um, I've got an 11-year-old granddaughter who lives in a home with me, and so I never set up the silent night in my home with the child here. I didn't know doing it. So I've been just taking my care of myself. And when I'm sore, I don't. I always have to give my body that extra time um, to heal. And sometimes the bottoms of my feet from the pins and needles and the energy, they get so sore that I have to use the Epsom salt, man. It's difficult, hard to stand up on your feet throughout the day. And I'm a forklift operator, stand up forklift, and it's a 12-hour shift. So they target the bottoms of my feet, and I wear safety toed shoes, but I always have to buy the nice insoles to put in, as if not, it seems like it's very painful after 8 to 10 hours on your feet, and they have inner legs and the bottoms of my feet. Um, but I'm sure it's a lot of people it's targeted the same way, especially if you work on your feet. Um, they'll start targeting your lower back or your legs, and you get really sore. They know exactly what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, for me with the feet, um, I use castor oil. I don't know if that oil just has some way of not allowing that sensation to be so great. Um, but I've been using that, and it does have benefits like for your feet. It'll, castor oil will, if you'll put them on the bottom of your feet in a sock, then it helps, with softening your feet too. So it's like a twofer, but, we just have to get really creative when we're going through these aches and pains. Like you said, that the back of the lower spine, the neck, and on the side of our neck is our vagus nerve. So that's the vagus nerve controls everything. So when you're getting that pain and that pressure on your head, I found this little roll-on essential oil stuff that I use on my vagus nerve to try to override what is going on. And you have to try different things and experiment to see what's going to help lessen the severity of the attacks that are being done. And what works today may not work tomorrow, but you've got like a carousel of things that you're trying to try. The biggest thing that they do is especially with auditory effect and everything, it is a distraction, right? And they're almost trying to rewrite your own truth and your own memories, by gaslighting you with things that are not true. So it's always important to, I think journaling kind of helps, especially if it's in the beginning stage, because the truth. And gaslighting is getting you to second guess yourself, and you'll start questioning yourself, going, could that have happened? And that's the whole part of this this ruse that is being done against you, to keep you, like you said, with the license plates and the cars and the people in the very beginning. That just seems to be how they really try to break us apart, right? Mentally, and wearing you down, and you're always on the hyper alert, the hyper vigilance. The mind is on it, it can never quiet because it's on constant lookout for the next threat. And so it's really hard to get yourself centered and pull back from that. And that took me a while too, but I just had to keep coming to terms with the way I look at it is with this street theater business that they do with the gang stalking, is your buy-in, your reaction gets them paid. So I try my best not to engage in any of that. And then that alone, they're just wasting effort. They're wasting so much effort, and then it backs off. At least I found that with mine. And then over the years, it's just been the auditory and the directed energy, the brain fog, of course, when you get hit and everything, and the bodily attacks, and just trying to not let it rule your whole day. Because when you give it you open the door and it gets its foothold in your day, then it's hard to get it back out the door. So it's always best to negate that in the beginning as best as you can.
Right. Yes. And that, when the very beginning stages for me too, I used to notice people, they would have those laser pointers, and they would either be the green laser pointer or a red one.
Mm.
But the nighttime, they would shine those up around through my windows of my house and stuff, and it would be a little laser pointer at Dollar General or someplace. Um, and they were just small ones, and it was a way for them to play. Because I always thought it would like me be maybe a gun scope or something with infrared, because there'd be a little red dot on my wall, and it would disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had that going on back in 2005, 2006, beginning stages, and I was able to identify what those little things were. They were just laser pointers. Of course, that to install that fear, I was in fear like I wouldn't believe what it was.
Yeah, it's amazing because I've had that, especially in the beginning with the laser pointer, the little flashes of light. I still get the flashes of light. It's like, so it's almost like in our biofield, and then you're walking around, and then you've crossed one of those signals or something, and I see like a little spark. It's like, well, I must have walked into one of their little
Yeah.
you know and then they try things like, if I'm you know in the home alone, my husband's at work or whatever, and all these noises, these pops, in the ceiling and all of that, I'm like, it's the same old tired stuff. I mean, it just, all these little things to try to get your goat on all of it, and then just have to keep on moving and not let them win. But yeah, you've had a lot of the same similarities in what they try, and I think a lot of us can relate to some of these tactics. And do you want to speak on the traps of V2K? Like for me, I would say in the beginning it was the threats. I was already threatened face to face. This wasn't auditory, but it was a person from leadership at that company going, if I didn't stop announcing my findings, I was going to have a very negative consequence happen in my life. Well, at that time, they had already started the gangstalking, and then I could hear the conversations repeated in their environment, but not at home. And I'll never forget the day that I started hearing them, in their voices, talking when I was alone at home. And I was like, where is this coming from? It has to be a microphone. How many times have we went looking all over the house trying to find a microphone, only to realize that, okay, it has to be something that's being beamed at me, right? That is causing this auditory effect. They even targeted my mother, and sometimes she would hear the auditory. She had the directed energy on her as well. But what are some of those pitfalls that you knew that came to you when the auditory effect started happening?
Um, like falling into answering them every time. If you get into V2K, you can ignore the V2K. The easiest way that I've found is I still get wrapped up into V2K, but I don't get into it like uh, I don't get so intertwined in V2K to where it affects my life. years ago I did, but there are some things with um, the threats are a main thing because it changes your personality somewhat. After a period, you'll get in such degrading. A lot of my V2K has they my daughter a lot on the V2K, and then of course she drives past my house 3 or 4 times a day, real slow, and just to try to get some type of response out of me. So I haven't really had a relationship with my daughter. She's 20 years old, and I think I've only been around her for about 2 weeks of her life. Uh, a lot of it's her mother. The whole side of that family has
Mhm.
completely isolated me from the child, and I know today how it began, and that's a lot of it will come to those who have more experience and more time invested with this. You'll start learning more about why things happened the way they did to you, but it won't until later. But I just want people, those who are targeted, that you're going through this within the first couple years. Don't be afraid to reach out to anybody at Targeted Justice. Don't be afraid to get in tune with the calls. Um, a lot of the conference calls you can get information um, because there's so much being shared a little bit of time. Um, don't stop learning about this program. Biggest thing that people to sit down for it and don't put forth any effort to try to cut it down or to get the information out. I think as long as we keep focusing and doing the things that we need to do together today and not feeling guilty when you have to take the initiative to reach out to the media, to reach out to your local congressmen and your representatives, because those are the ones, there's going to be an accountability standard when all of this comes about, and that's where uh, stay that true person, and that's all I've been trying to do is stay true and stay working and trying maintain a perfect balance isn't possible being targeted. But I am married. I got a job, and we we own our home, so we're doing things that normal people in society do, uh, trying to keep a balance. And I think I struggled with that for years. I didn't understand, and I kept asking myself, why did they choose me? These people don't have that kind of time. What are they targeting me for? But after a while, I got away from that and I started dealing with my issue of being targeted. I filled up a Rubbermaid tote, 18-gallon tote full of paper that I've kept open. And every time that I uh, get something here, Sterling and I recently went down to the Capitol and submitted the Havana syndrome bill to down there, and of course we didn't hear anything back on it. But those are things I keep. If I type something up or if I print something off, I just try to keep all my paperwork together. And this paperwork may not to anybody else, but it means a lot to me. And so I keep it. I keep everything, and I think it'll show. When it's all said and done. I won't have to explain myself because I already did. So,
Yeah. Yes. And for the times that I visited, HPD, FBI, I contacted CIA, I went through the whole thing. You have to look at it as those are tracks within history, right? These were recordable, traceable events that you have made by contacting, I contacted everybody in the state of Texas that was in a political office, also the sheriff department, the constables, anything, just being harassed. But yeah, nothing came of it. But like you said, this is history. No one can say that, Melissa Miller didn't say something about what was being done to her. She wrote and she contacted, she went in person, and nothing came of it. Nobody listened. So, like you said, there's accountability that has to come from this, this blind eye, this purposeful blind eye that's been done against us. And when you were talking about some of the V2K stuff too, I feel led, it's so hard when you have that auditory, because like with mine, I just want to give some examples. Mine was very demeaning. It was very personal. It was very about appearance, body, all of these types of things. When they started the directed energy weapon, they were saying that my deceased father was the one that was doing it. He was, putting a cigar out in my arm. And, these are the kinds of they really messed up when they did that, because I had such great admiration and respect for my father that when they went at that level, that really just put the light bulb on with me, going about how absurd of a tactic that these people would reach to that level to try to say and simulate that somebody's deceased father was burning them with a cigar. He didn't smoke cigars. That's just the absurdity of what they try, and the threats that they're, it was always about, oh, we're going to kill you and make it look like a suicide. Well, I went and I wrote a letter and I gave it to a couple of people that if anything happens to me, it was not suicide. This is what has been happening to me. And that helped me put that to bed, because what I learned with the patterns of the threats, because it was a threat about my mother, threats about my animals, the home, all of these things, is it's just one of their spin tactics. And because they want you to remain in that constant state of fear in hope that you're going to act out and do something against you, that gets you incarcerated or locked up. But it's just strategy. This is like, their strategy in this war on us is, having ourself hang ourself. You understand? And I don't mean that, from, I guess that's probably not the best analogy, but they want you to trip yourself. They want you to just be a nice little, wrap a bow around it. Their hands are clean and you've done it all to yourself. So, yeah. So keep that in mind when these tactics are being done towards you, that they're really, that's what their ultimate goal is for you to discredit yourself by the tactics that they use on you.
Hi, shut the door.
Fur babies, you gotta love them. They want to speak out.
Yeah, they're just helping out.
All right. Do you want to take some time and answer a few questions? I can bring some up on the screen. Let's see. I'm going to bring this one up. Hi, Juice. Do you still experience the V2K, or did it stop? I've had it since 2012. But what I have learned to do and become quite good at mastering is redirecting sound. When it's constant chatter of that nature, the best thing that you need to do is ignore it. So what you need to do is be able to focus on something in the background, or engage other sounds like music and such. And then for me, I'm hypersensitive I've always been hypersensitive in my hearing. So for them to do this to me, it was pretty, world exploding. But you have to get to the point to where that V2K is like a TV in the background that you don't care, what is on. It's just noise. It's in a busy restaurant and there's, people having conversations around you. That is it. You have to get to that place. Like, it doesn't get to have space in, in your world. It's just this background noise. And once you get to that place of being able to, now sometimes, they're like vultures. If you're having a down moment, they're going to start circulating around you, right? And they're like really going to start honing in. Or if you've had some reactive, experience or something happen in your day that wasn't pleasant, here comes the vultures, right? The peanut gallery is what I like to say. They're the peanut gallery. It's that wonk, wonk, wonk in the background, but you can't engage into it. It is so, so critical to find your methods of disengaging and ignoring it. You've got to starve it. And that's going to, then you'll see it lessen on you, because they know that no matter what they're doing, they're still going to try. They're going to try to throw that pebble, see if they can get that reaction, but don't take the bait with it. All right, let's see. We had quite a few going on. Oh, okay. Here's Darren is asking, does the Silent Night work for your V2K, Chris?
I haven't been using the Silent Night. Melissa, you had Silent Night, don't you? Is it?
Yes, one of the key things with the Silent Night, I use it at nighttime. I can't use it during the day when I'm on the computer, doing work, because it'll, it is a signal. So it kind of interferes with that equipment. So I keep it at my bedside. I have like a little table. The key with that is, to me, it helps a lot. It really does. But you have to kind of maneuver and, keep moving the position of the antennas so that, it's not the same all the time. Because once they know that it's in a certain location and you've got it in that position, then they try to work around it, because it's always in that position. So I would say a key success is to move it around a little bit so that they are not going to know, our plan for what position it's going to be in. But it helps me out significantly. I wasn't dreaming at all for a very long time, but ever since I started using it, I would just have, just normal, dreams again. So for me, it has helped. Okay, let's see. We got some more. Okay, Seth Sap says gang stalking could be a psychological symptom from frequency weapons. Chris, you want to take that one and respond?
Yes. And a lot of the gang stalking is right. I think a lot of these gang stalkers and gaslighters could very possibly have the subliminal stuff going on, or they've got just very susceptible to the opinions of us. Like, I can imagine myself with the VA and how things were when I first started, and how gullible I was and naive, to not understand. And I was just like almost doing everything that they told me to for the first few days, completely disoriented and just in shock, because you're going through it. But when it comes to gang stalking and this DHS fusion operations, 80 fusion centers within our country. Most most of my gang stalking, I would have to say, is from fusion center, Citizens Corps, Neighborhood Watch. It's all part of this state of Kansas. As far as it being other, that way in other states, uh, hey, sorry.
It's okay.
All right, so but yeah, most of my things, I believe, is through the Fusion Center, Core, Neighborhood Watch, with Kansas. You get into into different type of things, probably the same situation, a little bit, more of a magnitude than smaller communities and towns.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm going to bring up one more here. Enough Corruption says this heinous, illegal, torturous experimental program is an all-inclusive and does not discriminate. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, all different walks of life. It does not discriminate at all. It could be, there's been doctors, lawyers, whole mixes of all types of people all around the world. And it would be, it just makes you wonder how some are selected. Is, what's there's so many hypotheses of how. In my case, it was related to, I strongly believe it was all related to working for a corrupt business and speaking out. Some lines are more blurred. And, it's like, it could have been something, much longer than what, you're aware of when it really just started to reveal itself. In a lot of ways, I feel like from childhood, all of the experiences that I had was kind of preparing me for this. As a child, I was heavy set and bullied, so that I knew how to speak up for myself and to defend myself, right? So I think that helped. So if you can look through some of, things that from your childhood and things that kind of shaped and molded you, that could be, actually your allies in this whole experience. This is the way I try to look at it. I try to look at things as, the glass that's half full, and not to dwell on what has been done to me. But again, this takes a lot. For me, it took a long, long time to get to that. And you have to go through that anger and that grief and that resentment and that distrust. There are good people out in this world, and we must not forget that they do exist. Unfortunately, not everybody is open to hearing what's happened to us, and and that's okay too. But we are planting the seeds of truth out there, and at some time you don't know when that seed will sprout for that person, or maybe their family member, or who knows, maybe even themselves. They have that seed of information that could be beneficial once it's time to take, form. So never discredit that what you've done to be in your activism and spreading awareness is not making a difference. It makes more than what you're aware. We've obviously got, those who love corruption a bit shook that we have taken such a stand to stand up for ourselves. These podcasts are documented stories of people who this has happened to. There's too many of us to deny it. So, Chris, I really appreciate you being with me here today. Is there any parting words that you would like to say to our community?
I'd just like to thank everybody for coming on and taking the time to listen. And I appreciate each and every for putting forth the effort to program shut down for us. So this has been quite the battle. I'm still here live 22 years. This I lost hope for a few years, but I'm back on track, and I feel I feel good today. I feel a lot better than what I used to feel. I used to be stuck myself all the time, and I'm out myself today, and I feel that helping giving me a lot more of my personality back. So yeah, thank everybody. I want to thank everybody, and appreciate you, and thank Targeted Justice for all they do.
And thank you so much. And if there is anybody that would like to ask you any questions or reach out to you, are you able to share, a way or a social media or email if anyone would like to reach out?
Yeah, anybody can reach me at cmet, METT, at proton.me, or I'm on Facebook and True Social accounts. I don't get a lot of True Social. It seems that accounts hasn't been very good, but I'm also on Facebook. You can reach out to me and add me as a friend. I have a lot of people on Targeted.
I appreciate you offering that to the community. Sometimes it just takes, just someone with a compassionate ear to get you through a moment and to answer a few questions. Those of us who have been subjected to this for a number of years, helping out those that are new to it. And we know how frightening it can be. It's a gauntlet, but hang in there and stay strong. And we appreciate all your efforts and spreading the awareness. And again, thank you, Chris, for joining me today. And God bless you and all the work that you do for advocacy for our community. And thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye.